Evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 9th, 2024 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. Seeing none. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20, until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceeding as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel TV, which is now Xfinity Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of the meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First action of the evening is a roll call. Select Board Member Nicastro.
Present.
Select Board Member Davis.
Present.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Present.
Select Board Member Shell.
Present.
And Select Board Member Metters is present. We're going to open up with minutes. We have March 12th, 2024. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? We've already kind of started this review previously. Any other additional comments or questions? No? All those in favor, Select Board Member Nicastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Abstain.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metters as aye. Approval of minutes from March 19th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Edits? Comments? Perfect. All those.
I love that one.
You seem
Ed.
If you do them 2 or 3 times, eventually you get them right. You know?
Hey. All those in favor, Select Board Member Nicastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metters as aye. Public announcements and agenda item requests. I will start with the board. Does anyone on the board have a public announcement or agenda item request? Mike?
Yeah, I had a long conversation sometime in the last week with somebody who's extremely knowledgeable about municipal affairs on the Cape. And he asked if I had been aware, and I am somewhat aware, but not knowledgeable, about the case on Nantucket that dealt with a private homeowner's challenge to short-term rentals and the relationship of what is done, or what, at least in the one case, is going on in vis-a-vis the zoning bylaws in Nantucket. It was a long conversation. The other thing I learned was that a number of towns around the Cape are actually moving proactively to deal with some of the issues that are raised in that case. And so that's a sort of a long-winded request that we put on the agenda, a discussion with expert input on the Cape, on the case, and consideration of whether there are any things we obviously can't do anything about it this year at town meeting, but I think it would be wise if we would get smart about the implications of the case for our circumstances here in Chatham.
Great, thank you. Any additional from the call? No? Any business item agendas or requests from the in-house audience? Anyone online with a agenda item request or public announcements? Is that Elaine?
Yeah, Ms. Gibbs.
Ms. Gibbs, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would ask that the Select Board take up developing a policy reviewing bike paths. With respect to George Ryder at town meeting, residents were only asked to approve $88,000. And then it included an easement of the taking of 275 square feet of public roadway. Neither the Select Board or town meeting were ever told about the 20 mature trees that were going to have to be removed. And neither the select board or town meeting ever saw any plans of the massive stone and concrete work that's been done. The fencing that goes basically from Ocean State Job Lot all the way up to the airport with what I would regard as really cheap wood, and I don't think it looks very good. Apparently I had written community development, and that sidewalk project was not required to go before the HBDC, Conservation, or the Planning Board, or any other committee. So it has fallen, I think, to the select board to come up with a policy. I would venture to guess that if town meeting had seen the results, that massive granite wall, all the pavement and all the concrete that's been put in there and the fencing, I think it would not have passed. There has to be some accountability, I think, and some review. And I think it would be worthwhile if the select board said, before we approve anything, we have to see plans. And we have to see quality of materials that are being used. And so that's my request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Is there anyone else online with a agenda item request or public announcement? I don't see any names. Nope. All right. Moving on to our first item, we have a public hearing. This was actually opened on February 20th, 2024. We did continue it to last Tuesday, and then upon request from the council, we were continue it to this evening. So this is Town Bylaw, Chapter 115, Section 6F, regarding complaints of a nuisance dog at 48 Sylvans Way. Do we have? Perfect. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Diane Byers. I'm the Animal Control Officer for the Chatham Police Department. I originally came to the board on February 20th to notify you all of the ongoing and extensive animal control violations occurring at Nadine Terrio's property, 48 Sylvan Way. I suggested that Nadine be required to install fencing around the entire property, included a gated entrance to the driveway. On that date, the board agreed to reconvene in order to give Nadine a chance to correct the issues on her own. To date, the animal control violations have continued, and I noticed no discernible difference or effort made by Nadine to control her animals. On March 14th, I received a video of Nadine's dog Coda barking at a neighboring dog through the neighbor's fencing. Nadine was present in the video and did not appear to be able to control her dog physically or with verbal commands. On March 15th, I received 5 additional videos of 3 of Nadine's dogs loose in the roadway, again barking at a neighbor's dog through the neighbor's fencing. In these videos, one of her dogs appears to venture down the road, well off the property. The barking only ceases when Nadine's neighbor, Jean Ellis, brings her dog inside. Because of this incident, I wrote Terrio a citation for nuisance dog behavior. On April 7th, I received 3 videos of 3 of Nadine's dogs loose in a neighbor's yard. 2 of the dogs come dangerously close to running into Route 28. In the videos, Nadine physically picks up one dog. She is able to get the second dog to respond to her verbal commands. She then returns to her property, leaving the third dog, Coda, at the intersection of Route 28 and Sylvan Way. Because of this incident, I issued another citation, a violation for each dog observed loose. Because Nadine has made no improvement on controlling the animals on her property, I iterate my suggestion in our original hearing on February 20th that Nadine be required to install fencing around her entire property, included a gated entrance to the driveway.
Okay. Does the board have any questions at this moment before I ask to have Attorney Riley speak?
I'm going to have some, I'm sorry.
Yep, anyone, no, go ahead.
I'm going to have some comments, but I'll hold them until Mr. Riley has spoken and the public has anything to say they want to say.
Okay, so, Dean.
I just had a question
Yep.
of Diane. So Mr. Riley sent a letter when he was requesting the continuance last week. He says that Ms. Terrio's neighbors, the Ellis family, also have a dog, and when both dogs are out, they meet at the fence separating the properties and bark at each other. Ms. Terrio believes that she's the only one receiving a citation. I just wondered if you had any comment on that.
So the videos on March 15th and 14th were the first barking dog complaint I have ever received, which involved Jean Ellis's dog. In response to that, I did speak with Mrs. Ellis about the barking dog complaint. She told me that she had installed $10,000 worth of fencing in order to keep Nadine's dogs off of her property, but that she would now install some sort of blackout measure on the chain link so that her dog and their dogs wouldn't be able to see each other as easily. She did that promptly. So in my opinion, she remedied or is trying to remedy find a solution.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask Attorney Bill Riley if he would like to speak on behalf of the property owner.
Thank you, Bill Riley, on behalf of Mrs. Terrio. I have a little handout I'd like to. Section of the town bylaw. I've highlighted part of paragraph E, part of paragraph F. Yeah. Technically, yeah, talk to somebody.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to compliment Ms. Byers. I think she's doing yeoman work in a tough situation. So we have a couple of technical defenses I'd like to mention first. So a nuisance dog on a barking complaint is one who barks. I've underlined a section of paragraph F. It says for not less than 10 continuous minutes. And I would hope that Officer Byers doesn't have to stand there with a stopwatch, but I was with Chief Anderson today. He shared with me a bunch of the videos, including two that when Officer Byers knew I was in the building, she made sure I got the most recent ones. And of course, the videos are very, very short, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. And you can see the Ellis's dog and Mrs. Terrio's dog are quite friendly and like to bark at each other through the fence, even with the coloring that Mrs. Ellis had installed. But at least in the videos we saw, there's no continuous barking for 10 minutes. So again, I don't believe that we have a legitimate nuisance complaint on noise issue, on the barking issue. I think the neighbor, as soon as she hears the dog bark, turns on her video camera and then calls Officer Byers. So I think that I don't think we have a proper complaint in that regarding that issue. Then in terms of the dogs not being on the property, I'm going to make Mrs. Terrio available for questions, but from what I've seen and what result of speaking with Mrs. Terrio, when the dogs are barking, or when she hears them barking, she immediately goes out and gets them back on their property. And I watched the video that Officer Byers just referenced, where the dogs were on the neighbor's property. And I think that, at least by my observation, Mrs. Terrio goes on the property, picks up the small dog, and starts to walk to her house because that's the only way she can get the dogs to follow her back to the house, which they did quite promptly. And so paragraph B talks about dogs off the property. And what it says is dogs, animals that are running at large, and while acknowledging that the dogs do leave the property, I don't believe, at least the videos I saw today and what Nadine has described to me in the past, they would qualify as running at large. So when I last spoke with you back in February, I reported to you that Coda, who is the dog most offensive to the neighbors, was going to be leaving the property on May 1st. I asked Nadine about that today, and she said she'd received a confirming email either yesterday or today that, in fact, the dog is leaving on May 1st. So I think that what we have, the situation we have here is a hypersensitive neighbor who, as soon as she hears the dogs barking or sees them, at the fence with their friendly dog next door, that the first thing she does is turn on the video camera, and then the second thing she does is call Officer Byers. And I think the general language that we have in the bylaw, I really don't think addresses the issues that we have in this case. That's obviously my opinion, and I would hope you would share. But if you have questions of Nadine about how she controls the animals and what her response is when she hears the dogs barking, she'd be happy to explain that to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Riley. Would anyone like to address any questions at this time? Shereen?
I just have a question. Is it Coda that is the main culprit in the whole of these
Yes.
complaints? Okay, thanks.
But as soon as he heads down to the fence, I'm right there behind him with a leash.
Mike, yep.
Well, this is a little unusual, but sometime between that hearing and tonight, Ms. Terrio called me because she'd been referred to me for a matter of town business that had nothing to do with this affair. We made an appointment. There was another member of the town that also was part of that appointment who at the last minute was sick and couldn't make it. I was a little, I don't know, I wasn't really focused that day, and it was at least a half or three-quarters of an hour before I connected the fact that Ms. Terrio was the Ms. Terrio of the dog case. And we did discuss that a little bit, and I guess I would invite you, Ms. Terrio, to just give me a little bit of that narrative, give us a little bit of that narrative that you gave me that day, because I think it certainly gave me, whether it was appropriate, this is not a court proceeding, so I don't think we have a problem that way, but it gave me a much richer appreciation of the situation, which is, a relatively rural situation. Her property is rather large, it's 3.5 acres. It's very farm-like, and there are neighbors around, but not immediately next door or anything like that. So I would invite you to just tell us a little bit of what you narrated to me that day, if you would like.
Well, basically, I purchased the dog. He just turned 4 in March. Because coyotes and fox coming through the property all the time, I've lost many ducks, geese, livestock to the coyotes. Yes, I do let them free range. It's what's best for them. I got Coda to protect them. And also I had a horse a number of years. His jaw was ripped open by a coyote. So that's why I researched and got the type of dog he is. He is not a Great Pyrenees. He is an Italian Maremma Abruzzi sheepdog. Often just referred to as a Maremma. Different mindset than a Great Pyrenees. Any livestock guardian dog, they're known to not have the greatest recall. He does have better than most when I call him. Usually I'm holding a burger or a hot dog or something out, but he does look at me and finally come. When he heads down to the fence, it's not always my dogs that have started it. The other night, I had friends come down to my barn with me. We were just at the barn door when Gina's dogs came down the hill and started barking, because as soon as they see me or the dogs, they start barking. Well, Coda ran as fast as he could down to the fence. It's a game for these dogs. It's annoying, and before this complaint, Gina and I had conversed and decided to start calling each other to let us, each other know, well, my dogs are out. I'll keep mine in. Because we would like to stop this action too. It's very annoying. It didn't start with Coda. It started with my dog Piper and Gina's dog Clara. And the fence wasn't put up just to keep my dogs out. And I don't want to get my neighbors, I love the Ellises dearly. They're great neighbors. But Gina knows her dog has bitten every single one of my dogs over the years. I've never complained because they're my neighbors. I love them. They're dogs. Thank God nothing serious has ever happened. He is a good dog. I've tried to socialize him very well as a pup because I have a lot of people on and off my property or living in my house. And a lot of times livestock guardian dogs won't even let a stranger on the property. But he's very friendly. I've made sure he's been that way. And I really hate to be forced to lose my dog.
Okay.
Thank you. Any additional question? Mike, follow up.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. It was a torrential downpour that day, so I didn't observe the dogs outdoors, but they made quite a racket when I knocked on the door. But I walked in, and within 2 minutes, without any encouragement, they were quiet. All the dogs were very friendly, including Coda. One of them was practically in my lap the whole time I was there. They were all very friendly. And I tell you that because I understand there's a problem. People can be afraid of dogs. I've been around dogs all my life, and in a neighborhood that's got dogs, that's part of the neighbor. That's part of the milieu, I think, and I think we need to take that into account.
Dean.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I feel limited by the public hearing notice. The public hearing notice refers to complaints of a nuisance dog, singular. And I know that a lot of the background material that's provided by the animal control officer relates to other animals, other dogs. We heard some comment about videos involving other dogs, but I don't think this board has any jurisdiction to go beyond what's been noticed, and that's this one dog, which I assume is Coda, the dog you're talking about. I just say that that's not to say there aren't other issues that we've been hearing about, reading about in these materials, and I would hope those could be addressed in the neighborhood. Otherwise, there are bylaws, including the one that Mr. Riley just passed out, that deal with those issues. I think really what I'd like to get to is a resolution of this particular situation, and it sounds as though, notwithstanding your client's angst about giving up this particular dog, that the dog is actually going on May 1st?
Supposedly, yes.
Well, why would you say supposedly? Didn't you receive an email today
Either she's going to drive
confirming?
down here or I have to drive him up there.
But that's definitely going to happen.
May I make one comment? It's not nuisance dogs, it's nuisance neighbors.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just.
all right, I
I'm
know,
just-
that's okay.
I'm just reading them from the hearing.
And as
That's
far
all.
as them being loose in the road, Harry Ellis has said, my dogs have permission to be in that road. He owns the road, the neighbors do not.
Okay, that's it.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just going to state that. They've taken everybody in the neighborhood to court.
Okay, those are my comments. Thank you.
Just a couple of comments. We have a complaint, and our animal control officer has brought the issue forward, and we do have a bylaw, so we would have to come, do have to come to some kind of resolution with CODA. And I think the Select Board Member Nacastro is right. I think we kind of have a narrow purview here, and I think it is with respect to the behavior of CODA. So if Coda's out bouncing around and can't be controlled, then I would say you gotta be good to your word and have Coda go away on May 1st. Otherwise, I think you need to build a fence, which is what the animal control officer has suggested that you do if you wanna keep the dog.
I'm selling and leaving town.
Oh, okay, well, I mean,
Maybe the
again,
town wants to buy the property, 3 acres for affordable housing?
you know, Bill,
Perfect.
unreal, anyway. But, so, I mean, that's our job. We were brought an issue, there's been a complaint, you have outstanding citations that haven't been paid, you know, I'm not gonna say you gotta pay the citations, but they are outstanding. So you gotta kind of act in good faith, because the complaints have been brought. So we do have to come to some kind of resolution. I would suggest, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I would suggest that the dog, Coda, should go to the farm on May 1st, and if Coda doesn't go, then you build a fence and, you know, you gotta deal with the dog, you gotta control the dog. Because the complaints aren't gonna end, as far as I can tell. This has been ongoing now for, we've continued this hearing, you know, 2 or 3 times now, and the complaints continue. So as an objective member of the select board, that's really all I can opine, that's all I can say. Something's gotta be resolved. So you gotta contain Coda, Coda's gotta leave, or whatever. I mean, I think it's unfortunate, but I think the neighbors probably are highly sensitized, as was noted. I think that's a good word, or a good descriptor, but, you know, they're highly sensitized. Well, those are my thoughts. I mean,
Well,
you know.
I have a question, and you've kind of already answered it with your previous comment, because Coda was not the first dog. You mentioned Piper was the
Yes.
first dog,
This thing at the fence has gone on
starting
for
with the dog.
5 years.
And then Coda
Or
is the
more.
current dog, and Coda is kind of like a work dog. It's serving a purpose on the property.
Yes.
So my question was, okay, so if Coda leaves on the 1st, and you're looking for a service of a dog, would you bring another dog in to provide that service? But if you are stating that you're going to,
I already have other dogs, but
right.
Coda just took care of the coyotes and fox. I mean, at one point, my daughters wouldn't even walk out the driveway at night in the dark because coyote would be standing out there in the driveway.
Okay.
They're not afraid of humans anymore.
No, we're all very familiar with coyotes in this area and how aggressive or comfortable they are. I just say that. So this is a public hearing, so I am going to actually open it up to any further comments from the audience in-house. If anyone would like to make a comment tonight. I don't see any hands. Is there anyone online who would like to make a public comment or question on this discussion?
If I could make one further comment.
Yes, please.
One of the things that is not present here is an accusation that the animals are a threat to other people. They're just gregarious animals that enjoy interacting with the dog next door, among other things. And that seems to be the principal point of of the barking is involving the dog next door. So I believe after May 1st, you know, that issue will end. And again, Ms. Terrio's trying to sell her property, and you know, she has a daughter and a granddaughter out in Colorado, and she wants to move out and be with them, so.
Okay. So essentially, we have to make a determination on Coda. It has been presented that on May 1st, Coda has a new location that he can be relocated to. That is an offer that's been put on the table. And then we also have a level of discussion on the fines that have been collected to date. Some, if I read the material correctly, many have already been turned over to the court, so that's out of our jurisdiction, is my interpretation. But I think some of our comments might be viewed in the upcoming court case for the courts to take their further action. So I'll open it up, Shreen.
It sounds like the issue of Coda is a moot point if Nadine has, Ms. Terrio has taken care to find and relocate her dog. So I don't think that that's an issue that, you know, we have any problem with. You know, short of you fencing in the property, and then, you know, obviously that sounded
I
like.
would love nothing better, believe me.
Yeah, and we, you know, I understand that could be, you know, there's reasons why you can't do that, and understand that. So sacrificing the dog to, go to a new owner is it's got to be tough. And it sounds like, even though we've had these complaints and seen these complaints, it sounds like the dog's a cool dog, and the dog does
He's
its
a great dog.
job, which he was bred to do. So I'm just unclear when we have like citation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's barking dog, failed to restrain barking dog. Are all these barking dog complaints just one dog, just Coda? That's what I don't understand.
By
Now,
one party.
That would be a question for Officer Byers.
it would be, I simply because we're seeing an amass of citations, and there's one dog we're dealing with. I just want to get clarity. And
I think the majority of the citations written in 2023 were for CODA. The most recent citation that I wrote on April 7th for loose dogs were for 3 of her dogs. And that's why the amount is in $300, one for each dog loose.
okay, so you're not sure which ones how many are actually for Coda versus the other doggies?
I would say probably 100% without looking at them
Okay.
right now.
All right, thank you.
Does that include the ones that are at court?
Yes,
Those are all CODA.
yes.
Okay.
Mike?
First of all, I want to say, Officer Byers, maybe it's not appropriate to say I sympathize. I mean, this is a difficult situation. I recognize that. I'm not in any way intending to criticize or otherwise minimize what you're dealing with. Personally, my reaction is that you and we need to be taken out of this situation, and somebody needs to mediate among the neighbors and the dogs and figure out a solution that's workable, that the neighbors and the dogs are willing to live with and willing to perform, if you will. That's my attitude. I think that, you have one legally authorized way of dealing with what you're confronted with, and you've done it. But I think it's pretty obvious that it isn't solving the problem, and that's not on you. But I think from my personal perspective, I'd like to see a resolution here that says, how does this get mediated in a way that, as best as can be done, the parties have a way of working it out among themselves. I will say, maybe I'm getting a little too far out, but the material that Mr. Riley has put in front of us, I think raises a serious question in my mind whether we really do have a situation that's, something that we could find is a violation of the bylaw, which is
Yes.
somewhat separate from the
Could I
issue of the citation.
interrupt you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so he was a little incorrect with what the citations were and what they were issued for. So on March 14th and March 15th, I did not write a citation for a barking dog. I wrote a citation for nuisance dog behavior, which is 115-6A, the very first sentence. And then also on April 7th, he says he doesn't understand what dogs at large means. However, that paragraph is very specific. It says if you don't have permission to be on that land by the landowner, your dog is not allowed to be there.
And I appreciate that. I have two questions. One, I don't know what a nuisance dog is. You could help me by explaining that. And then, is this dog behavior that you personally observed or that was reported to you?
I personally observed it through a video sent by Nadine's neighbor.
Okay, and a nuisance dog,
I believe it's nuisance behavior, yes.
which is what?
Well, on March 14th, the dogs, 3 of them are in the roadway. I believe based on their behavior that they're antagonizing Jean Ellis's dog. They're barking at it. They're tracing back and forth between the fence line, trying to go around the fence line to get onto Jean's property. And Nadine is nowhere in sight to correct the issue. So yes, I would consider that a nuisance for everyone on the street that has to listen to that.
So essentially, it's barking incessantly.
Barking and loose, the totality of the circumstances would be a nuisance behavior.
Is there a statutory or a bylaw definition of nuisance?
I don't believe there is in the Chatham bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Dean?
I just want to go back to what we discussed when we had the first session of this hearing, Mr. Riley, and I appreciate your client's comments this evening and attachment to this particular dog. Is the idea of a fence, which was recommended by the animal control officer as a resolution for this, is that off the table completely? You had talked about the cost of it when we met last time.
Right, I think I would say that financially, it's unrealistic.
Okay.
And I think that, at least I'm optimistic. I know it's a, disturbing process for Miss Terrio to go through, to lose the dog that she loves so much, but I think that once Coda has gone to his new home up in New Hampshire, that things will calm down and
Well, my concern is that I know there are other dogs, as you said. Are we going to sort of have this problem be revisited with barking from the other dogs going forward?
well,
And I have been there every time my dog has gone to the fence, and I was on the video. And even when the 3 dogs went up the road, I was right there to get them. I don't think they were running at large.
Okay.
Coda went after a rabbit, and he's 110 pounds. Pulled, and I didn't hold the leash this time because I went down last week.
Okay.
So I let it go. Yes, they went up the road. My little one loves Coda, will follow him off the ends of the earth.
Okay. I was just looking for a way to try to help you keep your dog without,
Thank you very much.
but I don't know what else we can do. As far as the complaints in court, from the material that we read today, I think the court is looking for us, Officer Byers, to make a resolution of this evening, right? If this board decides that May 1st is the date that the dog will be moved, those citations would be dissolved, right?
So my supervisor, Sergeant Sarah Harris, said that if there was an agreement made with the board with Nadine tonight regarding all of the unpaid citations, that the hearing at Orleans District Court could be redacted if there was an agreement here between the
And
two parties.
those total right now about $1,200?
Yes,
what I read?
plus an additional 500 since the citations moved to court, so it would be a total of 1,700.
Okay, thank you.
Just an observation, and as Mike mentions, this is not a court or anything, but this appears that these videos seem to hold a lot of weight, and none of us have even seen any of them. So I guess it's just it's a minor observation that I would, in the future, if we're using the video to validate observations, I think we need to, as a board, consider looking at them.
So, Mr. Metters?
Yes.
This is the flash drive that Chief Anderson gave me today. It's got all the videos on it. Happy to give it to you.
Does the board have any desire to see a video? No. All right.
But the videos, just so you know, the videos are about 20 seconds or 30 seconds long. So they,
Could I add something?
Yes, please.
Some of these citations, yes, I've refused to pay. I've been down to talk to Sarah Harris. Now, when someone complains my dogs are out at 4 o'clock in the morning barking, which to my knowledge, they have never, ever been out at 4 o'clock. Hopefully, I'm asleep. And my roommates, which a lot of barking has been called in when I've been away visiting my daughters. And my roommate's been taking care of my dogs. The police get sent up to the house. They get there, there's no dogs outside. But yeah, there's a neighbor's dog barking. If there's barking heard, my dogs are blamed for all of it. And I've been told I will pay for the privilege of owning a barking dog. I'm sorry.
excuse me.
As mentioned a moment ago, if we can come up with a resolution on the fines, there may be action on the court. $1,200 previously standing, another $500 current, so we're at $1,700. Do you have any thoughts on a dollar amount that you were going to
Personally,
present to
I
us?
think if you consider the cost to the town of enforcing the citations, we're entitled to a hearing on every single one. So what I would suggest as a resolution would be that if CODA leaves on May 1st, that the citations be forgiven.
Okay.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I think that's good.
I agree.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm good with that. May 1st makes me a little nervous as a kind of like a sword of Damocles. I would have some kind of a very minor grace period beyond the May 1. I'm talking about 2 weeks or something like that. But subject to that, I'm good with it.
All right, would someone like to entertain a motion then? And not to close the public hearing, we're going to bypass all that, just make
Yeah,
a motion.
if I could suggest May 7th, then, give us a week.
Okay, I make a motion that we'll waive the fees, or the fines, I should say, if CODA departs by May 7th.
Second.
Second, further discussion?
Could I amend the motion and ask that the police department request that the court redact or dissolve the complaints that have been filed, provided the dog is removed by May 7th?
That's acceptable to me.
Okay. Any further discussion? No? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do you want to, yes?
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if I mentioned that hearing at Orleans District Court is May 21st. So if she does get rid of the dog by the 7th, then there's plenty of time to retract those citations.
All right, wonderful.
And I'll withdraw the amendment.
All right. So we have the initial motion, we have a second.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fine with
Any
the-
further discussion on the initial motion? All those in favor, Select Board Member Nacastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Next on our agenda is the drinking water testing and pumping update for the month of March 2024.
Good afternoon. Rob Faley, Department of Public Works Director. Just want to give you a brief update on the March 2024 pumping update. As far as training field wells 5 and 8, the temporary treatment at well 5, PFAS samples for well 5 were taken. We're running the water to weight in anticipation of the summer startup of the well. Raw water was still testing at 15.5 parts per trillion, but the treated water was non-detect. The JAC filter at well 5 was backwashed, and it's anticipated to go online around mid-April. We're just waiting for the bacteria sample results to return from the lab. Permanent treatment facility, good news, we had a general contractor. Bids were open on March 28th. There were 3 GCs who submitted their bids. The apparent low bidder is Winston Builders Corporation with a projected cost of $15,862,889. I believe Winston was also, they constructed Morton Road treatment plant, so we've got a good track record with them, so that was welcoming to see them interested. As far as wells 10 and 11, conservation easement that the Select Board previously approved is been approved by DEP. It's now been forwarded to the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs for their approval. Mass DEP inspection for the treatment plant is scheduled for early April. That actually has occurred at this point, and they gave us their approval. We're just waiting for that approval for the easement to start up the wells. So we're basically ready to go on those wells. So we'll be ready to go and start those up before the busy summer season. Hopefully within a week or two if we get word back. For the month of March, for the water pumping status, we've been running 4 to 6 hours per day. Water storage tanks did not hit low-level alarm this month. We've been taking bacteria samples for March, sent those to DEP. All samples were free of bacteria. We've begun our annual flushing of the hydrants. We had a Verizon cell tower raceway damaged on one of the storage tanks that was repaired. And our 2023 annual statistical report was submitted to DEP. That's an annual requirement. If we go to the, sorry about that. The pumping comparison, March 2023 compared to March 2024. You can see we're running about 5% lower than last March, which translates to about 875,000 gallons. The next page is just a pumping comparison graph. It's same information. You can see there are some spikes. This current year, March 24, is in the pink. March 2023 is in the blue. You can see some of those spikes. We started flushing on March 18th. So you'll see some of those trends where we are, a day with heavier flushing, you may see a spike in usage. Below that is just a bar chart with the same information. The next slide is the per day, per well pumping. It shows which wells were active on which day. Still wells 4, 5 are off for the winter. Well 8 is offline, and wells 10 and 11 are not online yet. But you see how wells 1, 2, and 3, there was sporadic. We were doing some maintenance on some of those wells while flow is still low, and wells 6 and 7 and 9 were carrying the brunt of Chatham during the month of March. Again, just a bar graph, same information, just in a different viewpoint. And next is just our annual pumping per well per month.
Rob, I ask this every time. We're down almost, well, it's 8.7%, almost 9% for the year. Any guesstimate as why we're not using as much this year as last year?
Possibly last year was still some COVID carryover and more people were in town. It's really hard to predict.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Again, just a bar chart showing basically the same information, annual pumping year to date for 2024. And here's the USGS observation well data. So on the first one is Chatham. I know last month when we talked, where the cursor is now, it was kind of starting to plateau, and I was getting a little worried that that was an indication of where things were starting to head, that we were starting to tail off. But, the recent rainfall has really recharged groundwater, and we've got another spike. So my hope is that that continues, and we're going to be much higher than we were the last 2 years. We're already better situated than we were the drought year of 2021. We're about equal to 2022 at this point, but we still have some gains to make before we're ahead of last year.
Still got April showers.
Yes. And I believe at the last month's update, I was asked about where the exact location of the Chatham observation well is. It was as anticipated. It's on the corner of 28 and Meeting House Road. There's a USGS observation well there. It's solar powered. It's on a town-owned parcel right on that corner. Okay. The next chart is Brewster. This is kind of long regarded as the more accurate indicator of what groundwater levels are like. Same thing, it started to plateau and then it started to spike again, which is a great sign. So according to this one, we are ahead of 2021 and 2022, but we still have to try to surpass last year. But you can still see the normal years of 2019 and 2020, we're still far below those. So whether we're out of the woods yet or not, time will tell. But I think April will be a really good month to regulate that and see where we stand. And the last chart is just a 5-year comparison for the month of March. You can see where we are, 171 hours this month. It's pretty high on hours, but I know we did take a lot of wells offline to do that maintenance. So the wells that were picking up the coverage were pumping longer hours, longer days.
Got a quick question, Rob. On the 20th, 10 and a half hours of operation, is that because we flushed the few days before, or it just seems like an anomaly all of a sudden? That
Yeah, we
run at
start.
6, 7, and 10.
We started flushing on the 18th, so I would imagine that was it. We probably had more crews out there flushing at the same time. We've had some personnel shifts, so we were down a few employees in the water department. We're back, pretty much fully staffed now at this point, so.
And just for our information, we flush why? Why are we flushing?
To remove bacteria from the water system. A lot of our seasonal houses have, their end of a water line area. They have to be flushed to get sediment out. They sit stagnant for most of the winter, a lot of these areas. So we just try to do it for the health of the system.
Good, thanks.
It's a common practice.
Thanks.
Rob, on March 21st, you have hours pumped as 42. Was that supposed to be 4.2 hours?
March 21st.
22nd. Yeah, 21st.
On this?
No, I'm on hours right after March daily gross pumpage. The orange.
Middle column.
Yeah, sorry, middle column.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
March of 22.
Yeah, that's an anomaly.
So that
That's-
might have
it's not-
skewed
yeah.
your hours a little. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Rob, I had a question on the PFAS samples for well 5. Have we gotten the results yet?
Yes, so for well 5, it was 15.5 as the raw water, so that's parts per trillion, but the treated water going through the temporary filter was non-detect.
Okay.
Good. Just a quick question, just a wastewater question. The pump station at the end of Route 137, that 137 and 28, when's that gonna go live? Is that gonna go live anytime soon, or it looks like it's getting close to completion?
It is. It had some supply chain issues with some of the pump and the electronics, so I think the contract was originally supposed to be over at this point. It's extended till August now.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, it's not a water question, but one I've gotten in a couple of different places with respect to that pump station. Do you have plans to landscape it, especially with some kind of tree protection to kind of close it off?
There is a landscaping plan associated with that, especially between like the doctor's office and the pump station. I could forward that to the select board if you like. There is a plan.
Yeah,
That's usually one of the last things we do.
Okay, understood. And do you have a sense of a timetable?
Sometime before August.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
I don't have a really good time frame for you.
Okay.
It's up
thank
to
you.
the contractor's schedule.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from the board?
That's a good report.
Okay. Are there any questions from the audience in-house? Is there anyone online with a question on this report? Yep. Elaine, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a quick question on the low bid from Winston Builders of 15.862 million. In the report, it says this is within budget limits. Is that 15.582 coming out of the 19.8 we approved at town meeting in May? Or number one, is that an addition? And if that's where it's coming from, are we going to actually be 3 million below what our estimate was for that warrant article?
So, so that is part of that 19.8 million. The 19.8 million includes construction administration, testing, a lot of other features in addition to the cost to the general contractor. We did leave, I think we had estimated about 16.6 million or 16.5 million for the general contractor's work, so we're still roughly $600,000 to $800,000 below where we anticipated to be, just on the construction portion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from online? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. next, we're gonna go into committee, board, commission updates, something we haven't done for a while. We're trying to get back on track of just reaching out to all our boards and committees, having them come in. Tonight, we're gonna start with the Economic Development Committee. We have the chair, Luther Bates, in the house. I know the EDC has been somewhat idle for a short bit of time, but I'm gonna allow the chairman to kind of give us a little insight on where things left off and maybe some thoughts on where the committee might want to go moving forward. It's good evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Luther Bates, the chairman of the Economic Development Committee. It's been a while since I've been up here, and I don't have very good news for you. The EDC has always targeted a high-level economic issues with a look at Chatham's future in mind and Chatham's youth and upcoming. We reviewed big topics such as demographics and why the population shift in age has changed dramatically since 2015. We looked at housing and childcare, short-term rentals, waterways access, and drinking water, wells, and private irrigation systems, and many, many things, sea level rise. I've served on the Economic Development Committee since 2015, and I've been the chairman for the past 8 years. And it's time to patch the torch. And it pains me to say that, as much as I love doing what we did. We've had some developments at the EDC. We've been on sabbatical for the past year following successful passage of the pre-K funding program at the town meeting 2022. We lost 3 key members of the group, and one of the remaining members moved out of town. So we are understaffed, and we operate best as a full group. We're a diverse team. We do a lot of strategy discussions and brainstorming, things of that nature that require a full and engaged group with many people of diverse thought processes. And we had that for many years. It was a good run. It was a great group, and I want to publicly thank all those members for their participation for that many years. Since then, my personal time demands have dramatically increased. I, as you know, have the art gallery, Chatham Harvesters, and now EVCON is an electric vehicle charging infrastructure consultancy, and it has taken off more than I ever would have imagined. And that's a good thing, but with a 3-year-old at home, time is of the essence. I was hoping and optimistic that vacant positions on the EDC would be filled, and they have not been. And my term expires in June. I had hoped to engage an easy and smooth transition to the new chairman, and time is running out. So I'm not 100% what the best solution is to do here, and I wanted to come here and engage a conversation about how we should handle this.
All right, well, thank you, Luther, very much. I mean, I definitely want to recognize your efforts and the other members who have served on the EDC over the years. You certainly did have a very diverse group. They were very engaged. They each provided their own little piece of the puzzle and conversations. I think your insight as a group to many of the topics that you reviewed and gave input on were very much valuable to the town. I do recognize, you know, I know Mike is your liaison right now, and I had served in the past for a short time as your liaison. The one missing piece is a kind of a follow-through element where the EDC would go over a certain topic, kind of offer a recommendation or an action plan, and we at times seem to miss that connection of what that next step is. And I did want to acknowledge that because I think you guys put a lot of effort into things, and I think there were certain things that we could have maybe addressed in a different manner. So I do want to, you know, give you acknowledgement of that issue that was Thanks. On the table. You know, after 8 years of serving as the chair, you certainly have a right to step down. You know, 3-year-old at home is, you know, might maybe a little more time consuming. we can all appreciate that. So we haven't really done any outreach as far as recruiting for the EDC. So I guess I would ask your thoughts on how would you, I guess my thought is I think the EDC should continue. I think this body should kind of identify a topic or topics specifically that we have an interest in having that group discuss. But I'd like to see it kind of restarted up. And, I don't know officially where some of the members stand. I know I talked to one of them the other day who seemed interested in continuing if the committee were to get going again. So I would open up your thoughts for the next steps to continue this committee.
I believe that the Economic Development Committee is a very important piece of the puzzle in town. It provided a lot of civic engagement for a lot of years to people of my age and my group and the group that the other members were in. So there was a lot of education to a younger demographic in town, and that was always helpful. I think that there's a value in having someone look ahead to some of the issues like the water supply issue. If anybody wants to take a look at the website, there's a nice position paper about the global water strategy from back in 2017 that might want to reread. I think it should stay. I think that there's room on the committee for some sharp minds, and there are plenty of them around town. I could be persuaded to stay along to coast the new group into more accelerated productivity. But I no longer have the ability to motivate in the same way that I did against the difficulties of continuous motivation, shall we say.
All right, well, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to jump in here. I haven't been around for the period of time that your committee was in operation and really active and producing recommendations and the like. I have had a chance to look at some of the product of your work, which I regard as extremely good stuff that could be, some of which could lay out an agenda for continued operation of the committee. I would also endorse Corey's comment that the committee needs to, it can occupy a very important place in the development of Chatham and the issues that we have to face at the top of the priority list. And I guess I would say it's on us to work to recruit a new team, or at least the elements of a new team that could be added to who's there, if there are a couple of people that are going to still be interested. And then finally, I would say consider yourself persuaded.
Shereen?
Yeah. Thanks, Luther. I don't want to see you go either, so you know how I feel about you. I think I agree with Mike. It's been one of the things that we oftentimes, when we have committees, vacancies, it's up to us as select board members to get out there and really sort of recruit the community and things about that. We haven't we've talked about a lot of issues, and we never look through a lens of the Economic Development Committee and what they can provide to us as a service, because they have provided a lot of good feedback to us. And we have, our town has taken some of their recommendations and enacted them that have helped the community be more sustainable. And that's, I think, one of the things that we need to start looking at a little harder here as a select board member. And I know we're going to hear a little more about local matters later on. However, we have a town that's changed quite a bit in the last few years, as Luther has said, and we struggle to sustain ourselves as a thriving community. And I would want us as a select board member select board to really take it on wholeheartedly, an agenda item request to really start thinking about where we can put our most impact, where this committee can have the most impact for us in making some good decisions about the future of Chatham, and not just let them flounder like we have been. COVID really hit us all really hard, I think, and life gets in the way. And your commitment has been great, Luther. Appreciated it over these years, and having that amazing core team that you had at your, in that committee is. I'm really sad to hear that some of them have left town and others have moved on. So I myself will do my best to look for new recruitment and very quickly. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Yeah, Luther, you've done a great job. Really appreciate it. I think, the recommendations that EDC made, found themselves kind of into the recommendations of the 365 committee, and we acted thereupon. There were some great ideas that were generated there. And I think the 365, included them ultimately in their recommendations. And I echo sentiments that have been expressed thus far, that it should continue and that it's up to us to revitalize and regenerate the committee. I think part of its charge needs to really look at how we refresh and sustain the year-round community here, and in terms of job creation, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I loved your point about we have a lot of good minds. We do, and we see a lot of good people that interview for a whole bunch of committees, and I think we could really generate some interest in this committee because I think it's very important. I did have a question. Who amongst the current members are interested in staying?
I spoke with George the other day. He seemed to have, Jeff?
I think George it's a fun committee to be a member of, and if there's someone who could take a little bit of the heavy lifting on,
Yeah.
I think it's a type of committee that you could show up and really have a good engaging brainstorm and strategy session with your fellow smart local businessmen. I think that they could mostly be persuaded to stay. There's a question about, if you have residency in another district, but you have real estate in town, you may be eligible to serve on this committee I'm not sure if it requires approval of the board or not, but that's something to look into because that expands the audience.
Yeah, I totally get the time commitment on your part. You've got a lot going on. So I totally get that. We'd love to have you to continue in some capacity, but I get the amount of responsibility you got cooking. You got a lot going on. To your credit.
Thanks.
Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the idea of reaching out to the current members, and maybe Kathy, you can follow up with the others. There are 4 others listed. And I think once we get a full complement on the committee, then I think working through the board's liaison to the committee, we can perhaps help refine the task, the charge of the committee. And I do want to thank you, Luther, as others have, for your service to the town. I got to meet you many years ago when I was in the Finance Committee, and you came in as kind of a smart aleck to my subcommittee, and I soon discovered there's a lot going on underneath that baseball cap. And I appreciate what has been said about the support your committee gave and the initiative your committee gave to the preschool program. And your interaction with Chatham 365. And I'll just mention in connection with your suggestion, maybe I know the chamber exec is here tonight, and maybe there are members from the chamber that would be willing to participate on the committee. But thank you. I hope you stay involved in the town, though.
All right. Mike?
Just a quick follow on 2 things. One, I don't think I was clear enough. I can't speak exactly from experience, but I know what you've done, and I know what you bring to the party, and it's a huge loss, and I appreciate all the time that you've invested to date, and I particularly appreciate why you're not in a position to continue doing that. I think, it's extraordinary that somebody at your, and I'll say it, age, was willing to do that. The one thing Jeff mentioned, we see a lot of talented people. I think it's probably fair to say we don't see all that many people who are, as you referred to it, your age. And I think particularly where the EDC is concerned, we need to focus on trying to populate that committee with younger folks who've got a horizon that's beyond the horizon of some of the other people that are sitting around this table here. So I hope you'll help us a little bit with that. So, but thanks again, Luther. You've done a great job.
Thanks, Mike.
Luther, thank you very much. I have a funny feeling someone's going to be twisting your arm for a little bit of transitional guidance on this. But the ball's in our court right now, and we're going to have to follow through with it. So, all right, thank you.
With my last 10 seconds of microphone time, I just would love to encourage the board to remember that it's helpful to feel like your efforts are being delivered, and it doesn't, it's easier when it's not so difficultly delivered, and think that would encourage a lot of the members to have stayed for longer. Maybe some small process modifications to ease the transition from a recommendation to an out-and-out rejection is better than a sounds good, see you in a couple months.
No, your point is well taken and noted.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Luther.
Thank you.
All right. Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees. Mike, are you leading this one?
Shireen and I are jointly doing this.
Absolutely.
I'll just start by saying, and normally I would like to let this pass, but because it's a public record, I just want to mention that the description of the board that's in the meeting packet is the old board. It's not the new board, and we'll just leave it at that. Shireen and I have kind of split up a couple of the things that are going on with the Affordable Housing Trust. I'll just say I think we got a great group, and we've had some very, very good, interesting, probing, forward-looking discussions, and we'll try to report a little bit about what specifically is going on our agenda right now. So, please.
Thanks, Mike. Again, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm really excited about this group. To have people in the room that have the knowledge, the breadth of knowledge that we're having, and to have staff that has a considerable knowledge in planning and development has been a real pleasure. And we might be moving along at a pace that might just, everybody might go, wow, we're getting some stuff done. But I'm just going to talk about the housing production plan. I think the last one was done in 2018, and we were doing this one again. So there's been, the housing production plan has consultants that have been working on it in partnership with the community, and have held the Community Housing Forum that was held here on March 20th. It was interactive, a lot of fun. There's a brief presentation by the committee and by the consultants, and then folks get to get up and walk around and sort of plug into maps in the hallway and different their thoughts and feelings about housing styles, areas of housing development, kind of like a wish list, which was kind of fun. The survey is still ongoing until Sunday, April 14th. It's online on the town website. I want to shout out to Angela at the chamber, has sent it out to her businesses, encouraging them to have their employees fill out the form and fill out the surveys, and as well as there's been a QR code that's gone around to the different businesses, so it's a little easier to post it up. I think community development put that all together. I know that like Liberty Commons, Bill Bogdanovich reached out to us and just said, I'm going to send this out to my employees. He's one of the biggest employers in town. It's been on social media, through the town, through community members. Community Housing Partnership has been leading a charge on some outreach, and we're really excited. The assessment, there's a little back thing. The survey will contribute to the assessment on which the consultants are working on, and we should get a draft ready by May, early June. I believe that's the goal. And so really exciting to hear some of the things that are happening. I think we had a small presentation back March 20th, and there were some there were some nuances in the report, that the initial sort of like findings of demographics that were really piquing interest around, I think there are some shifts and changes in this town. So anyway, so that's all that is on the housing production plan. I'm just gonna send it back over to the chair of the trustees.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I probably should have said at the outset, our membership now includes, Shireen and I are the select board members. Carolyn McClellan is the designated member of the Community Housing Partnership. And then we have 4 members at large, Bruce Bean, who also happens to be on the Community Housing Partnership. David Oppenheim, who I think everybody knows, has been around for a long time and has done a lot of work in development and knows the town very well. Leslie Schneeberger is an architect. She's done a lot of work around Chatham, very knowledgeable about how to get buildings done in Chatham. And then we have 1 vacancy, which I think that we're probably about to fill here on the select board in the next 3 or 4 weeks, if not sooner. With respect to the remaining items that I just want to mention, we have a couple of initiatives that are pursuant to land acquisitions RFPs that were issued by the town, but on our motion, our initiative. One was in January, which elicited a proposal that is currently under discussion with the party that proposed it. These are all possible purchases of land that could be used for affordable housing. We issued another, the town issued another RFP on the 27th of March, and that's due on the 3rd of May. And it's our understanding that there may be a potential proposal that's elicited by that one. And then there are a couple of what I'll call off the street or walk in the door types of initiatives that have come to our attention that are not to a stage where it's worthy of sending the party to the RFP. But there are 1 or 2 other possibilities that are in the works. As everybody knows, we have 2 RFPs outstanding, one with respect to Main Street, 1533 Main Street over here, right on next door to the Dunkin' Donuts. And then on Meeting House Road, those proposals are due, proposals pursuant to those RFPs are due the 25th of April. We would expect promptly thereafter to begin evaluating and processing those. I do want to emphasize that will be a process that will be jointly conducted with this select board, and we are absolutely dedicated to the proposition that whatever we decide to do will be the product of consensus from both boards. We expect that we will be inviting the proposers, whoever they may be, to make presentations to our board meeting on the 1st of May, or if that doesn't end up being convenient, the 15th of May. Those will be public presentations of the parties that respond to the RFPs. And so we obviously are kind of anxiously awaiting to see, as everybody else is, I suspect, what do we get from that. But I think those were good. They were good documents. There's been good interaction. We had some of the potential proposers tour the properties, and there was exhibited some good enthusiasm from the parties that took advantage of that opportunity, and optimistic that this will give us a good start on those two projects. As everybody also knows, that we have property on Stepping Stones Road, which has been dedicated to housing, not necessarily affordable housing, affordable attainable housing. And at the moment, the initiative at the Affordable Housing Trust Board is to have a conversation with Director Faley of the DPW to see how planning for sewer development in town, and specifically with respect to that property, can be factored into or integrated with our consideration of what we might want to do with respect to issuing an RFP there. 127 Old Harbor Road is also a property that has been on the agenda for some time, and recently, it went so many times, I can't remember whether it was last town meeting or the one before, that dedicated that to housing. And at the moment, I think our committee's position is that, our board's position is that we need to kind of go back and figure out where the process was when it was left by the previous board, which was the select board +2, and then see what we want to do or can do or should do from that point forward. Lastly, we have received a request from the planning board to suggest ideas, recommendations, et cetera, with respect to potential zoning bylaw amendments that might help promote the development of housing generally in Chatham. As we perhaps is somewhat known, the planning board has been spending a lot of time working on the zoning for West Chatham, and how that can basically develop West Chatham Neighborhood Center in a more forward-looking way, and we've been invited to give them thoughts more generally with respect to the entire town of Chatham, and we'll be working on that over the next several weeks, probably months. So that's our agenda, and we're, as Shireen said, there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and I think it's a very, very good group. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from our colleagues? Dean?
Thank you both for the report. I would just remind everyone for the record that with respect to Stepping Stones Road and 127, the select board itself has a direct role there because of the ownership status of that property or the acquisition funds that went toward it. I'm happy to hear that there's some interest in filling the vacancy on the committee, and look forward to your future reports. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, a good report. Thank you for the update. Pleased to hear that there's interest in filling that open seat. I think you guys have got enough going on. You probably want the help, want the input, so I think it's great. It's also good to hear that there are other RFPs out there or other potential parcels that are in play, perhaps, going forward for affordable and attainable housing. So that's exciting news as well. And I got to fill out the survey on the production plan. I haven't done that yet. Okay, so just a plug for that as well. Yeah, got to get to it. Thank you. Good report. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you both for the report, and I also will echo the opportunity to hopefully fill that open seat very shortly. I know there's an interview being put into place, so we're good with that. So, all right, perfect. We're going to move on. Public comment on our business agenda. So I'm going to take a moment and just run down our business agenda this evening. We have item A, consider a special one-day alcohol license, Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance at 1566 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. On April 24th, 2024 from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Item B, economic impact of supporting local businesses, from Amanda Converse of Love Live Local. Item C, disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest, a request for exemption determination from Jamie Bassett, Shellfish Advisory Committee. Item D, intersection safety improvements via line striping on Morris Island Road, Bridge Street, Main Street, Silverleaf Avenue. Item E, Massachusetts Clean Water Trust Financing Agreement. Item F, definition of, in quotes, property owner, close quote, for overstand vehicles, or OSVs, stickers. And then the last action of the evening will be item G, our appointments to the Committee for People with Disabilities and the Human Services Committee. So is there any public comments on our posted agenda this evening from anyone in-house tonight? I don't see any hands. Is there anyone online with a question or comment?
I don't see any.
All right, so we'll move back to the board. Business agenda, item A, consider a special one-day alcohol license to Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance at 1566 Main Street in Chatham, Massachusetts on April 24, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Hi there. Jen Allard. I'm here representing my client, Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance. They have their first Meet the Fleet series of the year on April 24th. I'm sure you remember, we run these 4 times a year, and it's from 5 to 7 p.m. at their office, 1566 Main Street. We partner with a local chef and local industry members to talk to the community about fishing, cooking with seafood, and promoting everything that they do. And we're looking for a one-day alcohol permit to serve refreshments. It's really just half an hour in the beginning before the presentation begins.
All right, well, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the board? Jeff?
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the special one-day alcohol license to the Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance for wine and malt beverages only for the Meet the Fleet event to be held on Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, from 5 to 7 p.m. at 1566 Main Street, Chatham.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor, Select Board Member Nacastro?
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis?
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens?
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell?
Aye.
And Select Board Member Vetter says aye. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
You're welcome. Item B, economic impact of supporting local businesses. We have Amanda Converse of Love Live Local.
Oh, it's ready to go.
Good evening.
Perfect. Hi. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak about something that is incredibly important to the long-term viability and sustainability of Cape Cod, our small local businesses and their impact on our local economy. For those of you who might not be familiar with Love Live Local, the organization was founded in 2013 by 3 small business owners, including myself. And what started as a passion project has now become a nonprofit organization dedicated to strengthening Cape Cod's local economy by promoting the importance of supporting small business and fostering a thriving community. Through education, advocacy, and direct support, we strive to inspire residents and visitors alike to invest in our unique local businesses and contribute to the sustainable growth of our region. We know that our local businesses are a huge part of giving Cape Cod its distinct sense of place, and we also know that market trends and public policy choices over the past 5 decades have harmed small businesses. This has negatively impacted main streets across the country, leaving communities without a sense of place and entrepreneurs without the confidence and capital they need to bring their ideas to life. And as a result, the number of small businesses started in the United States has been on a steady decline since the 1970s. We have gone through the exercise of imagining what this place would look like without any of our local businesses. I think we all sort of went there during COVID, and that picture does not represent a place we want to live, and we are pretty sure it's not a place where people want to visit, which is a huge consideration for a place like Cape Cod that relies so much on tourism. Most travelers want to go somewhere that feels unique and authentic. We are lucky that here on Cape Cod we do have a strong local business culture, and Chatham is certainly no exception. But we are not immune to what goes on over the bridge. So we work to ensure that the impacts of things like corporate concentration and the massive shift to shopping online with large e-commerce giants doesn't impact our local businesses to a point of no return. Our goal is to show people why it's important to shop local and how to do it. And we do this in a few ways. We connect consumers to local businesses through our tri-annual Love Local Fests, 2 annual publications, and our retail store in downtown Hyannis. We support small businesses across the Cape through workshops and grant programs. We produce research and digital content, qualifying and quantifying how much our local businesses mean to our local economy. And we share all this information with the consumer public and our policymakers like you, because you all have an impact on how well our businesses fare on Cape Cod. When we first started Love of Local, we highlighted research from communities across the country that showed just how important local businesses are to local communities. We highlighted things like small businesses provide a tremendous amount of tax revenue. They provide jobs. They support local nonprofits financially and with their time. They keep communities unique, and they keep money in the community. And for this point, we have been able to collect our own data. Since April 2020, Love of Local has produced our own annual studies to quantify and assess the impact of Cape Cod's locally owned businesses on our local economy as compared to national chains and online corporations. And you each have a whole stack of them there to go through. We felt it was important to put a dollar amount on just how much monetarily local businesses reinvest in the Cape Cod community. To show people it's not just about supporting friends and neighbors who own small businesses, although that is nice. It also makes financial and economic sense for all of us. Purchases from national corporations typically cause money to leave the local economy, as national chains and online purchases send money outside of the community to the areas where they are headquartered. When dollars are spent locally, they can in turn be respent locally. And this recirculating of money leads to an increase of economic activity. So these analyses have quantified what we already knew. Local businesses of all kinds, retailers, restaurants, and personal and business service providers like fitness centers and accountants keep up to 4 times as much money in the local economy as their national chain competitors. This is due to profits paid out to local owners, wages paid to local workers, procurement of local goods and services, and support to local nonprofits, the impact of which cannot be underestimated. It also showed that both local retailers and restaurants need less space and sprawl to generate more revenue per square foot than their chain competitors. Furthermore, locally owned retail restaurants and hotels employ more people per square foot. And when you put this into real dollars in the retail market, a market shift of just 10% from corporate stores to independent stores on Cape Cod would retain an additional $112 million in the local economy every year. Unfortunately, since the 1990s, large chains like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, and Target have been peddling to municipal officials and town residents that they are necessary and good for continued economic development and growth. And for many years, people have bought what they were selling. But we have done a bit of myth busting, and as it turns out, their sales pitch doesn't always represent reality. When there's news of a box store coming to town, one of the most common endorsements for the project is that it will bring more jobs to the area. But in reality, big box stores cause job loss. A study done by independent economists examined over 3,000 counties across the U.S. and tracked the arrival of Walmart stores between 1977 and 2002, and it found that big box stores eliminate more retail jobs than they create. The study found that opening a Walmart store led to a net loss of 150 retail jobs on average. This is because regardless of where a new box store chooses to locate, it does not increase the amount of disposable income in the community. So any money spent in the new box store is likely money that would have been spent in an existing business, causing overall revenue to drop for that business, which could lead to downsizing or closure. Another benefit touted by large corporate retailers and chain restaurants is that their low-density development will be a major municipal revenue generator. But in reality, big box stores come with high costs. In fact, a 2002 study in Barnstable showed that big box retail costs taxpayers more than they produce in revenue, finding that big box retail generates a net annual deficit of $468 per 1,000 square feet, compared to the $326 per 1,000 square feet that small-scale Main Street businesses return to public revenue. These large corporations also look for property tax and other loopholes wherever they can find them, which can cost state and local governments hundreds of millions of dollars a year in lost revenue. And there is usually a lot of excitement when a chain store breaks ground. People are usually impressed with the grandiosity of their store designs, but really big box stores oftentimes leave a blighted landscape. This is a perfect example. The structures built by box stores should really be considered as single use and disposable. When a chain store or restaurant decides to vacate a property, often after only a few years, the huge and highly specific space can rarely be repurposed or used by another business, leaving a huge empty and ugly hole for years in the built landscape. On the other hand, downtown commercial spaces can sustain a wide variety of uses. The design is flexible and adaptable, so when a tenant leaves, the space can be filled easily and quickly. Another popular perception that turns out to be a myth is that third-party selling platforms like Amazon and third-party delivery apps like DoorDash are good for a small business. They are very happy to have consumers believe that they help small businesses expand their reach and connect with customers. In fact, Amazon likes to say that 58% of the sales on their e-commerce platform are made by third-party sellers, many of them small businesses looking to tap into the 2/3 of American shoppers who start their online shopping search on Amazon.com. And on the surface, third-party delivery apps seem like a great service for independent restaurants that cannot afford to offer delivery of their products to customers themselves. But if you scratch beneath that surface, you will find that on any given sale on Amazon, third-party sellers are charged 25 to 50% of the list price. And the dominant third-party delivery app services charge upwards of 30% of every order, amounts that have increased every year. And in businesses where the net margin is at most 10%, this is in no way profitable. Not to mention that third-party platforms act as gatekeepers to all the transactions that go through their platforms. So independent businesses do not actually create relationships with these customers. Unless there's a negative experience, of course, then guess who's getting the bad review? These platforms are also using the data collected from consumers on their site to identify lucrative and successful products and restaurant concepts that they will then create a version of under their own brand names, cutting the independents out altogether. The reality is corporate third-party platforms are simply trying to extract as much wealth from local communities as they can to enrich their shareholders. Unfortunately, small businesses stay on the platform because they feel they have very little other choice. The truth is these apps are not the scrappy startup story of a Main Street bookstore or a local restaurant. They obtained their share of the retail market via Wall Street investors and grew their business to this vast scale through tax avoidance, predatory business tactics, unsafe labor practices, and have since gained considerable economic and political power that was even more amplified during the pandemic. This power is used to create an unfair playing field, engage in anti-competitive behavior, and crush the very small businesses their marketing campaigns claim they are championing. The last myth I'll address today is that big business and their economies of scale make promises to be cheaper, easier, more convenient, and more efficient. But these promises have led to virtually unbridled corporate concentration in most sectors of the economy, to the point where, despite the illusion of too many choices, when you go to buy just about anything, nearly every marketplace is dominated by just a few large players. And these assertions that bigger is better don't always pan out. COVID-19 revealed the fragility of our consolidated supply chains and how vulnerable we are to shortages. For example, meat processing is so consolidated that COVID-induced disruptions at a few giant slaughterhouses led to meat shortages in supermarkets across the country. Studies actually show that corporate concentration makes it almost impossible for new companies to enter and compete in many markets and leads to stagnant wage growth. And once a market is concentrated enough, companies can and will manipulate prices, reduce supply, and deliver terrible customer service. I'm sure we can think of one monopoly on Cape Cod that delivers terrible customer service and has raised our prices. Speaking of internet service, the US has some of the highest broadband prices in the world, and tens of millions of people like us live in regions with at most one provider to choose from. Studies estimate that corporate concentration like this can cost the average household between $5,000 and $50,000 a year in lost purchasing power. A 2008 paper in the Harvard Law Review found that median compensation for workers would be more than $10,000 higher if employers were less concentrated. The moral of the story is that locally owned businesses, no matter the industry, consistently exceed their chain and online competitors in spite of what corporations would have you believe. The impact of corporate concentration and power has other implications as well. Without a path to success, our small businesses will continue to falter, which on a very deep level is an equity issue, since small business ownership is one of the best ways to create generational wealth. Our colleagues at Amplify POC are working to reduce the racial wealth gap on Cape Cod by increasing local ownership of all kinds. This is important work for our communities and our local economies because according to a study done by Massachusetts is the state with the sixth biggest racial wealth gap. Put into dollar amounts, a study done by the Federal Reserve of Boston in 2015 determined the median net worth of Black families in the greater Boston area was $8, while their white counterparts had a median net worth of $247,000. Amplify likes to say that the opportunities that build wealth for people can help foster inclusion and belonging, building stronger affinity investment in the Cape Cod economy from all residents. but there are also economic gains. According to the Massachusetts Taxpayer Association, if Massachusetts could close the wealth gap in the Black and Latino communities alone, the state could grow its economy by $25 billion over 5 years. So our aim is to provide and rally support for all local businesses, because despite their proven importance to local economies and community vitality, small businesses across the country continue to face challenges to their survival, like supply chain disruptions, increased personnel and material costs, staffing challenges, and here on Cape Cod, unaffordable housing and childcare. And these challenges are not the only challenges small businesses are facing here on Cape Cod and across the country. They are threatened by corporate concentration and power in most economic sectors. And the responsibility of supporting our businesses is not ours and theirs alone. Local, state, and national governments play a role in ensuring their growth and subsequent reinvestment in our towns and entire region. There are many policy and programmatic decisions that are made every day that can support our small businesses on their path to success. And these are a few that we advocate for. So reduce the cost of doing business whenever possible and come from a place of yes rather than no. We have heard from many of our small business friends that working with the towns is oftentimes one of their most challenging things that they have to go through. We also recommend providing access to resources and support through grants and technical assistance. And that can be through local events and supporting organizations like your incredible local chamber. And you have an amazing, dynamic new leader of the chamber. And I think in supporting her as much as you can is, and the Village Association and all people who are trying to do community and economic development in the town. Increase procurement of local goods and services whenever possible. Municipalities have huge buying power, and it benefits the community to keep as much of that expenditure as local as possible. Invest in and support additional local broadband capabilities, end all tax subsidies for or special treatment of national corporations, support zoning ordinances that encourage the proliferation of locally owned businesses. And I do have to say, Chatham actually serves as an example across the country with their restrictions on formula-based businesses. So that is definitely something to celebrate. Encourage and support local operation of personal and business services like waste hauling. Limit corporate power and concentration through things like antitrust actions and right to repair laws. Support main streets and downtowns with funding. Things like data collection and event support. Like I said before, this is where many of our mom and pop shops call home. And advocate for equitable access to business ownership. These measures and actions are so important for a place like Cape Cod where 99% of our businesses have 50 or fewer employees. And keeping our small businesses strong and vibrant is directly tied to our community's well-being. Thank you all for your time. I'm happy to take any questions or comments, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.
Well, first of all, Amanda, thank you very much for a very thorough presentation. Shereen.
I'm going to jump in. You've been elevating local for a very long time, and very appreciative of your advocacy and the group's advocacy. I think you were so spot on. I'm just, the two takeaways I have from this presentation is, as a select board, as we set policy and guidelines, we have to, and I think we did talk about this when we established 365, is look through the lens of how that's going to impact local businesses and our community members. And when we're setting those policies, whether it's fee-based or whatever, it's important that we continue to do that. The other piece is put your money, your money is power. Our money is power as community members, as small business owners. We can shift a lot with just a little collectively. One thing that I think, Amanda, you should put in the presentation is probably there in some way is local businesses have a smaller environmental impact. And we have a very fragile sandbar, and I think, I've done work of shortening a supply chain in the fishing industry, and our argument is that is a closer environmental, positive impact for the community. A lot of towns have set policies. Our town has really been great in our board in setting our goals and strategies for, up to we're 2030 now, is to look forward thinking in that, and we're our values are really important to us, and our value statement is reflective of a lot of that. But again, it's, there's the municipal responsibility, there's also the community responsibility. And we are, as you said, unique communities, and I've had some great conversations with coffee with Angela over the last, month or so that have been very inspiring as to what is possible for us supporting local business and enhancing our community. I'm not going to take up too much more time. Just thank you very much. Let's have coffee.
Yes, well, and I'm grateful to you for helping facilitate my coming this evening. I love what you said about seeing things through a local business lens. Honestly, that's my goal in coming to, I've been visiting select boards across the Cape, and that is what I want to, is just being able to kind of look at everything through how will this impact our local businesses. And thank you for the suggestion to put the environmental impact. I have actually given presentations on that, so I can certainly incorporate that, and I will. And yes, we are actually also very lucky that Angela has recently joined our board as well, so we're in, yeah.
Thank you again.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Amanda. That was great. Live, love local. I see there's bumper stickers everywhere. I think that's a great marketing campaign in and of itself. I was so pleased that you mentioned Chatham as kind of being on the vanguard of supporting local business. I believe we have been for years, to be honest with you, with our zoning regulations, to be honest with you, keeping formula businesses out of here. We do have a Dunkin' Dodo, but it's very understated.
Yes.
And we'll continue. I know this select board, I can speak, I think, for all of us, that we'll continue to support local businesses with a wide and deep lens for local support. We believe it. I believe it's the backbone of any community,
Yes.
especially here in Chatham.
Well, and I knew when I came in here, I was walking into a group that gets it. And a lot of what we've uncovered in our research is stuff that I didn't know. I know a lot of local business owners didn't know, so I definitely feel like peeling back some of those layers is really important. And it's not just about what you do here in this room, but also about the conversations you have out in the community, and maybe you're talking to state policymakers, and maybe you're talking to federal policymakers about, because obviously different policy levels you impact different things, and so I thought it's really important to kind of shine a light on all of this stuff, and grateful that when I'm meeting with other independent business alliances across the country, and they point to Chatham as a zoning example, there's a sense of pride for sure. Yeah. And like I said, here on the Cape, we have a strong local business culture. I just don't want us to sit and think we're immune, and that we won't be impacted by online shopping, and even a box store locating in Hyannis can impact businesses here in Chatham, and I think that's something also regionally we need to think about as well.
Right. I think we think about land use planning and housing we're tackling, and business development. They're all inexorably related.
Yep.
They're all tied up together, and so we have to really kind of attack them all.
Yep.
I get the sense, or I have the sense, that the Lower Cape and the Outer Cape are really kind of have a pretty good vibe. When you get closer to Hyannis and maybe Route 28 in Yarmouth, not so much. But that cat's kind of out of the bag,
Well, yeah,
for
I mean,
years. So
yeah.
I think from Harwich, Chatham, Orleans, East Hampton, pockets
and
of Tennessee,
that has to
done a
do
good job.
obviously with proximity,
Right.
But like I said, I think people drive, and I'm gonna defend downtown Hyannis a little bit.
No, I like
because-
downtown Hyannis. Is great.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that downtown Hyannis has faced impacts of
lots of
economic
challenges.
development that has benefited the entire region, and no other main street has had to really face a lot of the big box kind of retail that has come in and kind of sucked some of. I mean, it has been revitalized, and it is definitely
Main Street's fun.
Main Street is fun,
It
and
is really fun,
but I do think it is important to acknowledge that what happens in Hyannis can actually impact the rest of the Cape as well.
Absolutely. I have one follow-up, Amanda. These are impressive documents. You've done a survey and stuff. How are you funded? Who funded the survey, and who are your supporters?
The one of Cape Cod 5, the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod,
Okay.
and then we've gotten grant. So there's a foundation in Maine that funds research in Burnsville County, which has been, they funded one of them as well. So it's definitely grants from our local, our banks are amazing. And we try to find grants. But in general, the organization we are not a membership organization, so we're funded
Right.
through sponsorships and grants and other fundraising tools that we have at our disposal. So our publications and so our advertising income from the publications and the vendor fees for our festivals and our retail store are fundraising mechanisms for us. So and that's how the local businesses kind of express their support for us and their belief in us. And we're really lucky that we have many local businesses that support us.
Thank you, Amanda.
Dean.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask, how old is your organization?
So we were founded in 2013, and it was we were small business owners at the time, so it was our passion project that kind of grew really fast and furious. And so in 2020, we became a nonprofit. I closed my businesses to focus on this full time.
And what's the size of your staff?
2 3/4.
Okay. I won't go there. And just, are you doing this presentation to other towns or across the country?
Yeah, so I've been to Orleans and Harwich so far, but I'll go wherever they'll take me.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, this is terrific. You know, one of the things that we need, focusing on, I think one of the things I think about it is sustainability. I mean, we need to be thinking about how do we push initiatives, how do we, as you've outlined in your program and your presentation, avoid things that are negative impacts on our economy, but more importantly, things that help fuel the engine of growth in a way that gives us sustainability, and that's all in there. I commend you for that. I mean, having somebody who does that, who thinks about it, who collects the data and organizes it and presents it the way you have, is not something we're entitled to assume or expect just happens. It's somebody like you and Love Live Local takes it upon itself and yourself to do that. I do have one thought for you, and I don't know how relevant it is to us on the Cape, but I've been reading lately about the impact on the national economy of the very positive impact on the national economy of immigration. And the fact that it has added significant amounts to our GDP. It's added points to our growth from year to year. It's added spending these are all from immigrants. And interestingly enough, the reason I bring it up is the number of small businesses that are started by immigrants. And so as I say, I don't know how that fits in, if at all.
I think
here
it
on the Cape,
absolutely
but,
fits in. I mean, I think immigration in general, we know that there are many jobs that have not been filled here on the Cape, and I think there are many immigrant communities that would relish the opportunity to come here. Obviously, housing is a huge issue. But I think that all you have to do is go to downtown Hyannis and you see the number of second-generation Brazilian-owned businesses that have popped up in the last few years. It's been amazing to see, and it adds so much vibrancy to the community. So I think that we definitely, are advocating for that kind of inflow.
Good. Well, thank you very much. This is great. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I've been a small business owner for 24 years. I grew up here and I moved back because I, and my businesses have been able to provide an opportunity for me to return here, raise my family here. This community is very supportive of businesses, local businesses. You see that, restaurants, services, you name it. It's been very it stands behind, it's a very tight-knit community, in my opinion.
Yes.
And very supportive. I do think when you say, live local, anything, we need to make sure that local element also applies to those who are, operating businesses, working at businesses, and that we don't, and we are addressing housing because we don't want to push people too far out because we want to keep it local, literally. And as far as some of the diversity issues or the elements, I grew up in this town and, there's an opportunity for greater expansion, but there's far more diverse business owners and businesses in town that exist now than when I was, when I grew up here. So we definitely have more room to grow for sure, but it's heading in the right direction.
For sure.
It's heading into,
Yeah,
for
agreed.
variety and culture. So, I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you. Well, and I'm grateful that you all recognize that, the important role that you play in fostering all of this too. It's really important. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. We are going to move on to item C, disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest, request for exemption determination from Jamie Bassett on the Shellfish Advisory Committee. I do know there was an email sent shortly prior to our meeting where Mr. Bassett was unable to attend tonight. Want to kick it off, I guess, maybe?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bassett is looking for action from the board to determine whether or not his financial interest would impede his service on a town committee. And so he has provided materials, and what we're looking at right now is Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 19, which is the disclosure that Mr. Bassett had filed relative to his service on the Shellfish Advisory Committee. And the disclosure form that's provided is, the request of the board is to determine if the financial interest is or is not so substantial as to be determined likely to affect the integrity of the service or his service on the Shellfish Advisory Committee. And he noted that the exemption is in relation to an upcoming matter on the committee that will be asked to make a recommendation at their April 24th, 2024 meeting. So you have the materials in your packet. He provided some subsequent materials, and interesting enough, he captured something from the state ethics website that addressed specifically shellfish advisory committees, and that they did not see that as a conflict of interest. So this is one, we'll have another one next week.
Yep.
And certainly if there's any questions, Mr. Bassett could be asked to elaborate on it, but I think everything's pretty straightforward.
All right, questions or comments from the board? Jeff?
I just think that we need to hear from him before we opine on this. I would suggest we not consider this matter until he's here and we can speak to us. And we have time, I think, because they're going to take up the consideration of the issue at the meeting on the 24th.
We can continue. We have another member of the Shellfish Advisory Committee who has filed the same exact documentations. We have scheduled him for next week. You're right.
So why don't we, I think we ought to, honestly, Corey, I think.
No, I think it'd be fair to all parties. So, Dean.
I'm okay with waiting, but I think in the interim, it would be helpful to get some advice from town council on this, specifically with respect to the Ethics Committee, Ethics Commission example, because I don't read it as a blanket exemption for all members of the Shellfish Advisory Committee. It says, I'll read it. I'll read the two sentences that are important. It says, a municipal shellfish advisory board has been created to provide advice to the Board of Selectmen on policy issues related to shellfishing. The advisory board is required to have members who are currently commercial fishermen. And I emphasize the word required. I have seen in the past guidance on either the Ethics Commission website or the Attorney General's website that suggests that if you want to provide protection for the members of a committee that are going to be voting on issues that affect them financially because they are engaged in the same commercial profession or trade that is the subject of that committee, you need to codify, preferably in a bylaw, how you slot the membership of these committees. And I give credit to Jamie because he has put his finger on the issue. In his disclosure form, he says, any commercial shell fisherman, shell fisherwoman, past, present, and future that has been, is, or may be appointed to the SAC by the Select Board has had, has, and will have a direct financial interest in most every topic that comes before the SAC for discussion. And I think that, and I've mentioned this before with respect to the Waterways Advisory Committee, I think the same thing applies to the Aunt Lydia's Cove Committee. We have members who are in the fishing community who are on these committees. We have a boatyard owner on the Waterways Committee. Matters come before those committees that puts them at risk of conflict of interest. And I'm not aware of any bylaw protection that we have. There was a proposal floating a few years ago with respect to the Waterways Committee. It never really made it to fruition. So I would really like some advice from town council as to whether the town should be providing some manner of protection to those that we ask to serve on these committees. Because right now, the composition of these committees is serendipitous. You could have a shellfish advisory committee that has no shell fishermen on it. There's no requirement that they be. There is a report that is in the materials from 1967 that says the committee is comprised of 7 men, it says, including the shellfish warden, shell fishermen, and so forth. So we don't have codified what the makeup of these committees is supposed to be, and until we get that, I think, we're putting people at risk, and I think that's, the crux of the issue. As far as the individual request, I think I'm perfectly happy to wait for another week or so when Jamie Bassett can be present. But I would like to get some perspective from town council in the interim on this subject. Thank you.
That's fair. Okay, any additional question? Yeah.
And this is fairly nuanced. I just read the example where there's no violation. It's very nuanced in the wording in here, guys, folks. I'm just saying. It's very nuanced, and it's not. I don't think this is going to be that easy, to be honest with you. And I think we really need the folks here, and we also need to have town council weigh in as well. I totally agree with Dean. Totally agree.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I'm sort of in agreement. My only problem, I really honestly, I know the provision is there. I know that it gets, there's a provision in the law, section, whatever it is, section 19, I guess, that kicks it to, it doesn't kick it to us. It kicks it to the person who is the supervisor of the applicant. And I would, and I'd like to hear what Pat has to say, but I think that's different when you're talking about somebody who's a member of an advisory committee that's appointed by the select board, as opposed to somebody who is a town employee with a supervisor where a conflict comes up of some nature or other. That's one distinction. I also think that I'm a little less troubled by this, given that it is the issue is advising, not deciding or implementing or legislating or otherwise taking action that has a direct legal impact on somebody in the community. That's a difference for me. And finally, I think that I recognize it is nuanced, the provision that you read and Dean read, but that if there is a general, if the issue generally affects several people on the committee because they're shell fisher persons, that is the out, not the select board, in my humble opinion. So, but we'll talk this over when we get together next week, I guess.
Shereen?
So I'm service liaison to this committee, and yes, I mean, it is comprised mostly of commercial shell fishermen, some recreational. It is a difficult place that that they're in, not, you know, but they're there, and they're as an advisory committee. I'd really like to wait, I think, hearing from Pat on this, and also, you know, this got thrown at us, and if Mr. Bassett wasn't available, he isn't available, obviously. Let's table it until we can hear from him and hear from the other person that's filed the same.
All right, we're going to continue this. We have another applicant or another member of the committee who's going to be coming before us next week. Hopefully, Mr. Bassett can actually be on that same agenda. We'll confirm with him, and we'll move this forward. Yep. And then we can just discuss it further from there, but yes.
Yeah, just one last thing. I would like, and this is either on the applicant, Jamie, or whoever, or maybe some help from staff and Pat, but I'd like a really precise explication, identification of what is the financial interest. It's not just generally that we're talking about shellfishing, or I'd like to know precisely what is the action that's in question that creates the conflict of interest, and what is their interest that is the other side of that. So and I'm using this opportunity to sort of hopefully school them in how they can have a little better discussion next week.
No, I think it'd be appropriate because there's other members of the committee that may be entertaining the same action, so. All right, okay, moving on. Item D, intersection safety improvements via line striping at Morris Island Road, Bridge Street, Main Street, Silverleaf Avenue. Welcome back.
Good evening. Sorry you have to listen to me again. So, DPW received several complaints about the intersection of Main Street, Bridge Street, where it meets with Morris Island and Silverleaf Avenue. Primarily, it's due to vehicles driving too fast coming to and from Main Street to Morris Island. They basically acts as a through road, even though there are stop conditions exiting Morris Island and stop conditions exiting Silverleaf Avenue. Through road is really Main Street to Bridge Street. So what we propose is to just do a little creative line striping to bring Morris Island up closer to a T intersection with Main Street. That will enable vehicles to stop a little bit more in a visible location, and it'll tend to have people coming down Main Street make a sharper turn onto to Morris Island Road. This is a very low impact project. It's just line striping. We're not removing any pavement. If we received a number of complaints after the fact, we could always reverse it back to what it was, but I think it's a good shot. In addition to this, we would take the stop bar on Silverleaf and move it forward. Currently, there's only a 95-foot sight distance to Bridge Street. We would increase that to 105. It's still not enough to meet current regulations, but it will be a slight safety improvement. So these do not require any new signage. It's not, wouldn't be a hearing because it's all really existing conditions. We're just refining it. I just wanted to make the board aware of this because it is in an old village, adjacent to the old village area. We did get Traffic and Safety Committee to endorse this, and I also received a letter of support from the president of the board of the Old Village Associates. So there is kind of unanimous support. I just asked for, select board. I don't know if this requires a vote or not, but it's just, I wanted to make you aware of it so there were no surprises down the road.
We'll certainly discuss it and vote. As you presented, these can be changed relatively easily. Frankly, I think these new line stripings would actually work. I would be optimistic that your results are gonna be kind of what your target is, especially going from Morris Island up, heading toward Main Street, having your vehicles kind of shift over a little bit so they're better sight lines. Anything coming from Main Street down to Morris Island Road is gonna have to distinctly take that left-hand turn. And if it doesn't work for whatever reason, or there's a feeling for it's not working, it's a quick remedy to bring it back to where it is currently. So, I would be supportive of this, but thoughts from the board?
Do you want a motion, Corey?
I would love a motion, or thoughts? How about Motion, second, and further discussion.
Move support.
Move to support.
Second.
Second, further discussion. Mike?
Yeah, just a question. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's fine. Although do it, and if somebody complains, take it away is kind of the trial and error approach to planning. Here's my question. Who's the president of the association?
Winfred Lear?
Okay.
Winnie Lear.
Yeah, Winnie Lear. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, good.
And I apologize.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that we would reverse it.
I-
I think it'll work if there were, as people, get used to the new traffic pattern, if there were some accidents and there were some, public outcry, we could always reverse it, but I don't anticipate it.
That there is, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that location, and it can be treacherous at times. So I think it's a good suggestion.
All right, further comments? We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, Select Board Member Nacastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item E, Massachusetts Clean Water Trust Financing Agreement.
We have Carrie Mazarol, our finance director, is here.
Hi, good evening.
Good
How are you?
evening.
There are two Clean Water Trust interim loan notes that need your approval tonight. CW 2230 in the amount of $15,754,810. $810, sorry. And CW 2233 for $3,605,672. That's a total of $19,360,482. These two interim loans will be split out between three different articles. Article 14 from annual town meeting, May of 2014, in the amount of $11,327,612. Article 18 from annual town meeting, 2017, in the amount of $4,075,143. And Article 37 from annual town meeting 2019 in the amount of $3,957,727. Do you have any questions?
Interest rates?
As of right now, they're 0%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike?
I'm just interested, there are a bunch of certificates here and representations on the part of the board, and I'm just curious, who is it our lawyer that kind of tells us we can sign that, or is it you and Jill, or
So this gets put together by our bond counsel.
okay, but there are some things here about the town that,
Oh, yep, they put that together.
okay.
Yep.
But who's satisfied that those are all true?
I look over it. There was something that was mentioned the last time I was here about the home rule, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about, for example, just page 3. I don't know if it's the first page 3, but page 3 of the certificate, no action suit proceeding inquiry, blah, 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 exists. There are a bunch of things here that are, very technical representations that certain things are true or don't exist or whatever. And just as a matter of our due diligence, I'm asking, who is it that has satisfied herself or himself or themselves that these are all true?
On page 3. I think this is just,
I know, it's just boilerplate.
yeah.
But if it's not true,
Sorry.
somebody's going to want to know.
Mike, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to follow. What number in particular are you looking?
Well, they're throughout, but I just picked on the, if you look at the certificate, on on page 3, there are a bunch of representations for,
No
number 4,
action
no
suit.
default. There's no, we're not in default under any of our agreements.
Oh, God, no. No,
Okay.
no, we are not.
And I appreciate that, but I'd kind of like somebody here to say, yeah, I've read it, and nothing has caused me to think that any of these is untrue.
Correct. Yes.
That's, you're telling me that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's fine, that's all I want to do. That's good, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions from the board?
Do-
I would say yes.
And then the clerk will sign, endorse.
Done it both ways. The vote of the
Yeah,
select board.
I would say that we should be able to do a motion to adopt the resolutions as presented in items 1 through X. That is my motion.
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Select Board Member DeCastro?
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis?
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens?
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell?
Aye, and I want to be clear, it's paragraphs 1 through 8.
So noted. And Select Board Member Metter says aye. Okay.
And I think we have to do it the second time
We
for
do,
the other
for the
one.
next, yes,
Or actually, I think we have to do all 3,
all
don't we?
three, yeah, sorry.
So once again, I'll move that for the second one, that we move to vote and approve the resolution set forth in items 1 through 8.
Second, further discussion? Hold on.
We're just consulting on,
All right.
does this satisfy them? Okay.
We're good. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, further discussion. All those in favor, Select Board Member DeCastro?
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis?
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens?
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell?
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye. And now the third.
I think there are, now that I see it, I think there are only 2. Yes?
Only two, there
There
are
are
two
only two.
different loans.
Two
Yes, right.
loans. Yep.
One for 3 million and one for, what, 15?
For
Yeah.
15, yeah, right. Okay, so,
Okay, well, Jeff will make sure of it, but she's signing them, so.
I think we're good.
Are we done?
You're all set?
Then we have the documents for Jeff to sign tonight if it's approved.
Well, I think we all have to sign.
No, the clerk,
we have to
the
sign
clerk of the
votes.
Select Board.
Yeah, right,
There's notes to sign.
yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. All right. Definition of quote, property owner for overstand vehicles, OSV stickers.
Hello, Greg Berman, Director of Natural Resources. So as of now, there are 2 classes of people who can purchase an overstand vehicle sticker. The first is a resident of Chatham, the second is a property owner of Chatham. These definitions tend to vary across departments and divisions. It was my intention to do a broader look at a lot of these, but a lot of these are also encoded in regulation and are going to need a closer look. But what we can do right now is look at the overstand vehicle stickers, because there really isn't a policy or regulation built onto there about beneficiaries of trustees. Specifically, this was brought to my attention that while it doesn't list beneficiaries of trustees anywhere in our written document, apparently historically it has been granted to these beneficiaries. I believe I indicated in the agenda report about 6 other towns specifically say that they do not. I've had a little bit extra time and looked into it. There's actually 11 towns that specifically call out that beneficiaries do not count as residents or property owners. The other ones are just unclear. It's not easy to say. So this is something that may have been an oversight in the past, or maybe it was intentional. but wanted to get your clarification on it because really we just want something, firm that the sticker office staff can point to, that this decision was made and really how you want to define it in the future. We did consult with town council regarding the wording of it, and he did provide some additional information that's in the agenda report.
So recognize a lot of property, individuals and families are putting their properties into trust and as beneficiaries and trustees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think, at least, just my general read on it is, I think you could have a trustee or beneficiary, whatever, that is also a resident, because you could have a property that has, 2 trustees, I don't know. But one trustee actually uses that as their domicile, and they would have utility bills, a driver's license or something that would then qualify them for that status. So I don't think it's really that difficult to kind of weed through it, but, I mean, I'm not the legal entity on this board. There's 2 more over here, so.
Right, and we hopefully are allowing residency to trump anything else on here, that if you are a resident, it doesn't matter if you're a beneficiary property owner, the residency still allows you to get that sticker.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. If you're a resident, you're a resident. And if you're a beneficiary and also a resident, you're a resident, you get a sticker. But a beneficiary alone who's not a resident should not. Those are my thoughts.
Mike?
Just 2 questions. One, how did this come to your attention?
So, sticker office staff brought it to my attention because this has been contentious at the sticker window at times. And also my conversations with the town of Orleans that manages the access up at North Beach, that they were surprised that we allow beneficiaries, and that kind of got me interested enough to look to see what towns do and don't do, and apparently we're a bit of an outlier.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, and I think you sort of adverted to it, but if we adopt the definition that you're suggesting, does that should we be worried about that, the implications of that for anything else, like beach stickers and/or transfer station stickers?
Right, so this is specifically for the OSV sticker.
Yeah, I get
and
that, but.
all of the other ones are codified in regulations, and we can't touch them that easily.
And they resolve the issue in the existing regulations, one way or the other?
Yes, and it's not always in the same direction.
And that's
But yes.
fine. I have no problem. I mean, I would say for the transfer station, it should be as broad as possible, but because I'd like to encourage people to use it. But, okay, that's fine. I'm good.
Okay. Dean?
So Greg, as I read the memo, there are, in 2023, 50-plus individuals who were beneficiaries but not trustees got this residency status.
Correct.
So if we adopt this change, they will no longer be eligible.
Correct,
Good.
unless
But they
somehow
can get
become resident.
they can get to go to Orleans and purchase a non-resident sticker, which is significantly higher in price. And the town of Chatham would receive 25% of each one of those stickers, which is almost $100. Understanding that correctly?
Let me just look at the price to make sure, but
Yeah.
yes, approximately $100, and that's about what we get now.
Okay. Okay. And you say town council has approved the actual draft language?
Yes, the language in red on your agenda report is an addition
Yep.
to the 2023, and it was reviewed, edited, and approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, want to make a motion? Mike?
All right, I don't have a motion. I move that we adopt the definition of ownership as presented in the 2024-2025 resident and property owners North Beach over sand vehicle sticker agreement, application.
All right, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Questions or comments? Further discussion? All those in favor, Select Board Member DeCastro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye. Final action of this night, thank you, Greg, very much.
Thanks for the cleanup.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Is appointments. We're going to start with the Committee for people with disabilities, we have one applicant, I believe. And we got, all right. So,
Got the wrong-
any, Dean?
We had one applicant, Mr. Chairman. It was Terry Albertine, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And we can either appoint him as a member or an associate member. He was very flexible about it. I would suggest we appoint him as a member and give him a term until June 30th, 2026. I know he had some concern about whether he could serve the full term, but I would leave that up to him.
You are,
I move to appoint Terry Albertine as a member of the Committee for People with Disabilities until June 30th, 2026, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, Select Board Member Castro,
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis,
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens,
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell,
Aye.
and Select Board Member Metter says aye. Now we have Human Services Committee, also currently one applicant.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
I move to appoint Barbara Conti as a member of the Human Services Committee until June 30th, 2027, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, Select Board Member Castro,
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis,
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Further discussion? I mean, come on, we've got to talk about this a little bit longer. All those, Select Board Member Castro.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.